Hey everyone, and welcome back to another explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into the digital battlefield. We're going to unpack a really dynamic, highly structured blueprint for understanding, tracking, and ultimately defeating cyber threats. If you've ever felt totally overwhelmed by the sheer scale of cybersecurity, well, you are in exactly the right place. I want you to think about that for just a second. Seriously, how do you catch an invisible enemy? In the modern era, cyber attacks can just feel like pure chaos. Hackers are crossing borders in absolute milliseconds, navigating through these insanely complex networks, and doing it all without leaving a single physical trace. And here's a pretty wild fact. On average, attackers can dwell inside a network undetected for over 200 days. That is more than 6 months just lurking in the shadows. Traditional security used to be all about just building higher walls, like bigger firewalls, and hoping the enemy couldn't jump over them. But what happens when they inevitably do? Well, to catch them, you have to stop looking for who they are and really start looking at how they behave. Let's make this concrete. Imagine you're a detective investigating a string of bank robberies across your city. You don't know the robbers' names, but at every single crime scene, you find the exact same clues. You've got broken windows, specific types of lockpicks, size 7 shoe prints, and this strange pink powder left all around the vaults. And of course, the gold is always missing. Even without a face or a name, these consistent tactics and clues act as a sort of behavioral fingerprint. If you show up to a new scene and see that pink powder again, boom, you know exactly who you're dealing with. In cybersecurity, we use a framework to track digital fingerprints just like this. Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today's explainer. We're going to start with the blueprint itself, unpack exactly what ATT&CK stands for, explore the hierarchy of a breach, navigate the matrices, look at how red and blue teams use all of this, and finally, apply it to a real-world cyber threat. First up, Section 1, the Cyber Detective's Blueprint. We're standardizing the chaos. So before we look at the tool itself, we kind of need to know who actually built the thing, right? The framework we're exploring today was created by MITRE. They're a US nonprofit organization with some really serious historical credibility. They actually spun out of MIT way back in 1958. They manage federally funded research and development centers, often called FFRDCs, which support agencies across aviation, defense, and homeland security. So back in 2013, when MITRE decided to create a standardized language to track adversary behavior, you better believe the entire industry paid attention. Moving on to Section 2, unpacking the ATT&CK acronym. Think of this as the enemy's dictionary. You've probably seen it spelled out with that ampersand right in the middle, but what does it actually mean? Well, ATT&CK stands for Adversarial Tactics, Techniques, and Common Knowledge. So the crucial point here is that this isn't just a list of bad malware. It's a globally accessible, totally free knowledge base that is built on real-world observations. Adversarial simply refers to the enemy, the intruder. And the rest of the acronym, tactics, techniques, and common knowledge, well, that forms the exact structure of how this database actually organizes hacking behaviors. Which brings us to Section 3, tactics, techniques, and procedures, the hierarchy of a breach. So the framework categorizes an adversary's behavior into a really strict hierarchy. Over on the left, we've got tactics. This represents the adversary's ultimate tactical goal. It's the why. Why are they doing this? Maybe they want to gain initial access, or maybe they're trying to exfiltrate some sensitive data. Then on the right, we have techniques. This is the how. How exactly are they achieving that tactical goal? If their goal is to steal credentials, for example, their technique might be sending out a targeted phishing email. So just remember, tactics are the broad phases, and techniques are the specific actions. Let's move along and see how this builds, because it follows a really logical sequence. Imagine a hacker is actively targeting your company. Step 1 is the tactic, reconnaissance. They are gathering intel. Step 2 is the technique they choose for that, active scanning of your network. Then Step 3 drills down even further into a sub-technique. Specifically, let's say they're scanning your IP blocks. And finally, Step 4 is the procedure, the exact step-by-step technical script or tool that a specific threat group uses to actually execute that scan. By breaking a massive, complex cyber attack down into these granular little steps, defenders can spot the bad behavior at literally any point in the chain. All right, Section 4, navigating the attack matrices. Let's talk about environments and IDs. Now, what's really interesting about the MITRE ATT&CK database is its visual structure. Across the top row, you have the tactics. Those are goals we talked about. And listed straight down beneath each tactic are all the different techniques an attacker could potentially use to pull it off. It's clean, it's corporate, and it acts almost like a structured cybersecurity course. And they don't just have one single matrix for everything. They've separated them out by environment. There's an enterprise matrix for Windows, Mac, and Linux systems, there's a mobile matrix for iOS and Android, and there's even an ICS matrix for industrial control systems, things like nuclear plants and floodgates. And right here is where the true power of the framework really shines. Notice the specific ID tag here, T1595. Every single technique and subtechnique inside the MITRE ATT&CK framework is assigned its own unique alphanumeric ID tag. T1595 just happens to be the ID for active scanning. Now, why does this matter so much? Because it creates a totally universal, standardized language. If an analyst sitting in Tokyo tells a security engineer over in New York that they're seeing T1595 activity, there is absolutely zero confusion. They both know exactly what behavior is happening on the network. It completely transcends international borders and language barriers. Section 5. Red Team versus Blue Team. Two perspectives, one framework. Both of these sides use the MIT matrix to play a really high-stakes game of digital chess. The red team, which is the offensive side, uses the framework for adversary emulation, essentially acting like a specific, known hacker group to plan out their attack patterns. They use it to guide penetration testing and find vulnerabilities. On the flip side, the blue team, the defenders, use it to assess how mature their security operations center actually is. They map their alert detections directly to those MITRE IDs, and they use the listed techniques to proactively hunt for threats that might already be hiding in their network. Finally, Section 6, Real-World Cyber Threat Emulation. We are going to track APT29. Let's look at a real example with APT29. They're a notorious threat group, and you might actually know them better as Cozy Bear. When security researchers analyzed their massive network intrusions, they didn't just type up a generic summary report. They mapped Cozy Bear's exact actions directly to the MITRE framework. They found that APT29 specifically abused elevation control mechanisms on Windows machines. To actually pull that off, their chosen technique was bypassing the Windows User Account Control, or UAC. And their specific procedure? They deployed a known public exploit code called UACME. Now, because the whole industry uses this standardized dictionary, we know for a fact that APT29's action of bypassing user account control is officially classified as technique T1548. So if your red team wants to test whether your company is vulnerable to a Cozy Bear-style attack right now, they don't have to guess how to do it. They just pull up T1548 in the MITRE matrix and emulate those exact step-by-step actions. And this brilliantly illustrates the dual value of the whole setup. MITRE isn't just cataloging the bad stuff, they're actually handing you the solutions. Right there on the exact same page for technique T1548, MITRE provides direct defensive strategies. For this one, a key mitigation is simply to remove users from the local administrator group on the system. It connects the offensive threat directly to the defensive solution, which gives your blue team exactly what they need to patch up that vulnerability. Which brings us to our final thought for today. The MITRE ATT&CK framework isn't just a bunch of academic theory. It is a totally practical, living dictionary of the world's most dangerous digital behaviors. It shifts our entire focus from just crossing our fingers and hoping the firewall holds to actively understanding and predicting the enemy's next move. So, looking back at all the tactics and techniques we've explored today, I'm going to leave you with this question. If a red team emulated an advanced persistent threat against your network right now, how would your organization measure up against the matrix today? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next one.